The Varginha case, one of the most intriguing cases in UAP, UFO lore, if you will. And a great documentary called Moment of Contact from James Fox. One of the first things I ever watched while getting into this topic, and some really intriguing information. And not only was the documentary, to me, really special, there's a lot of merit to a lot of different. I think it kind of came back around over the last year. This particular case, it's always been out there, obviously, but when I was getting into the topic, the majority of the movies and people who would tell you to watch The Phenomenon by James Fox, even over the last year and a half, the big buildup towards Age of Disclosure, it was more the Moment of Contact was always looked upon a little bit foo-foo-ish, right? Because as the other ones are military and government talking about it, this one is full on diving into a topic that says that there was actual involvement or from the U.S. government about covering up an actual crash with an actual being, and people got sick, people died. If you haven't seen Moment of Contact, I highly recommend it. And then, I think it was like 3 to 5 months ago, they did a whole thing where one of the doctors who interacted with one of the creatures was there on Capitol Hill talking with James Fox and other people. And Burlison was there. And Burlison said that he wanted to start looking into this thing as well. And that looked to be true. Say what you will about Burlison. He has really been one of the major front and center people of trying to get information and really knocking on the doors. And he's doing it again with this particular case. So check this out. This one, I want to thank Skywatcher Signal for tagging me on this, because he made this post. I'm going to read his post, and then we'll discuss this entire thing, because I happen to agree with him. So you see Skywatcher Signal's post there, and it says, Burlison presses the CIA and the FBI over the 1996 Varginha UAP case. This one is a biggie. This is where I agree. Rep. Eric Burlison has now sent formal letters to the CIA and the FBI requesting that records related to the January 1996 Varginha Campinas UAP incident in Brazil. The letters don't ask either agency to confirm the public story. The letters don't ask for proof that aliens crashed in Brazil. They are demanding records. Do U.S. government records exist? Were there U.S. flights, material transfers, liaison reports, contractor involvement, legal attaché reporting, or coordination with Brazilian authorities between the 14th and 28th of January 1996? The CIA previously responded to a private FOIA request by refusing to confirm or deny whether responsive records exist, citing national security and statutory exemptions. Burlison is now asking the agency to account for those records directly to Congress. The FBI letter is just as interesting because it asks whether the Bureau has investigative equities connected to the U.S. personnel, U.S. persons, federal contractors, U.S. registered aircraft, or other American interests tied to the same incident. This follows Burlison's earlier request to Mitra and MIT Lincoln Laboratory to identify and preserve legacy UAP records. Burlison is a man on a mission. He isn't chasing down stories. He is going after custody trails. That is exactly how you get around decades of denial without needing the agencies to omit the entire story up front. The Varginha case has always been in the strange category of UFO history, where the allegations are extraordinary, but the persistence of the witness testimony, military involvement claims, and international attention make it impossible to deny. Now Congress is asking whether the United States has records connected to it. If the CIA and FBI have nothing, they can say so to Congress. If they won't say so, that becomes juicy. So this is the actual Burlison page here, and just kind of goes into it. Kind of breaks it down. If you want to check that out, you can see that's top there. It's burlison.house.gov. You can check that out. That's always an answer, right? As if in the same way when Grush came out it's about a month ago now, whenever it was, when he was on Capitol Hill on the steps talking about the different species and things or plasma and aliens and all that, and we still haven't got a full-on denial from the government about it. We still, and I think it was Chris Cuomo who brought that up and said, why haven't we still heard about that denial? Where is that? That still hasn't been denied. Maybe it was, but we haven't talked about that yet. No one said it. No one's countered to it. None of the debunkers have tweeted that response out. So the same can be said about this. It's like, okay, there's all these reports about Americans being over there retaining this stuff that crashed, bodies, other things. True or false response, anything. Nothing in general. Now, the thing that always gets me to rub my head and say, I just don't know. I mean, and this is where I don't get paid the money that Burlison does, or I don't have the job Burlison does to know this kind of information. But in my head, I'm thinking, well, what would stop the FBI and CIA to saying, hey, just say we don't have any files. They say we don't have those. Retract them. Anything that we do have, just make them unavailable. They don't exist. Delete them. Put them somewhere else. Name them something else. Put them somewhere else. Do that. It's one guy looking. Just say, hey, we don't have stuff there. We were there, but we were there at this particular time, but not the time that you're talking about. Couldn't they essentially lie and move things around? I guess the answer to that is, I guess it depends on how big your team is and how much power you really have behind the investigation. Because I don't feel that it is this way, but if it's just Burlison knocking and say, hey, can I see those files? And they go, yeah, sure. That's what we have. It's nothing. See, tell them that we weren't there. Bye. Or is it more so of, hey, we're pressing now because we were told by the president that we can do this, and so we are. And this will, if this information comes out and we indeed do break this particular story, that it's we make sure that we make these claims and we say, hey, listen, we can affirmatively say that this happened, we had involvement in it. Here's the documents that we have, and that opens up a major thing. They can say, well, we want to thank the administration for being so helpful to us for us to do this, because if the administration wants to shut it down, they can, and they don't seem to have been doing that right now. They seem to be giving Burlison and Luna and the rest of them kind of almost like carte blanches, because keep knocking on the doors. Now, Burlison is moving in a lot of different directions, which is a good thing. He's trying to get whistleblower protection program. He's trying to get information in the files on this case. He's trying to do a lot of different things. He's trying to get more witnesses. The problem is everything that I just said was he's trying to. Now, that might not be a problem if it follows with he tried to and accomplished this, and this, didn't quite get this, but got this, had some movement there, didn't hit there, but really delivered there. The problem that we would potentially get is, yeah, he tried to get that. They said no. They tried to get that. They erased those files. They tried to get that person. They weren't having it. They tried to do that. Not going to happen. But show the grainy footage. That's fine. That's a problem that is always there and has been a thing for a lot of different people who have attempted to try to do this, not into this to this level, and to see what he's been doing so far. Because look, by trying to actually get these documents and putting this case out there, I know how much of a broken record I am. I really do, and I promise. And I know that even if I watch my videos, I'd be like, oh, here he goes again about the mass media, because I think I've been talking about it for 3 years. But I just feel like I have to say it each and every time that if you have someone in Congress that is asking the CIA and the FBI for files about a report about potential UFO crash and beings, I would bring so much attention to not only the James Fox documentary, if I was an anchor on any one of these big news networks, I would also just start diving into the topic in general. In this, and not as someone who is saying this is factual. It's to say, okay, we have a panel of people here. There's 5 people here. This person is skeptical. This person is a believer. This person wants to hear more of the facts. This person was there. This person did this. Let's talk about this topic, and here are some of the facts of this case. And not only was this just something that happened in 96, they're bringing it back up again because a couple of months ago, the same doctor, one of the doctors who was there, has come out publicly and said this. They've also had interviews with Jesse Michaels. You can see that on American Alchemy. But then the other big topic, the reason I would even cover this at all, is to say we have someone in Congress who is actively looking to see what was our involvement there, if any. Will they find anything? Because here is the problem that I believe, and I think you guys believe it too. If that scenario that I just painted happens, the reason why you would never get that, and you won't even get that, if Burlison succeeds and we find out that we did have involvement and we were there, I still find it doubtful that they would cover it. Even if we found out that there was a U.S. presence during the 1996 Varginha thing, that we came in, we did something happened, there were documents saying it. It would be like a maybe a 2-minute piece at the end of Gotti Schwartz's report, when after they show like, oh, the world's biggest balloon launched today, and then right afterwards, oh, and we had involvement during the 1996 Varginha case. See you next weekend, guys. Tell me about your hot dogs that you had over the weekend. And it's like that. It's lead stories. It reminds me, I was not as much anymore. I still enjoy UFC and MMA, but I was during like the early 2005, 2012 era. I was really into it a lot, the old school days. And I know the old school days, 93 with Gracie, I get it. I'm talking about like when it started to get real popular. And I remember getting frustrated watching ESPN, and they wouldn't even take the sport seriously. They wouldn't take it seriously. They I remember Pardon Interruption would kind of laugh at it, and a lot of the anchors would laugh at it and say that it was just barbaric and that it would never catch boxing and no one would care about it. And then eventually here we are years later, and it's covered all of the time now. The difference is this, that they really started to get on board when they saw how big the ratings were and how many people were, and then ESPN getting a piece of it and getting a deal and all that. You put a story about UAPs on any network, especially on the internet, whether it's News Nation, CNN, Fox, whoever, that piece outperforms any other piece about anything going on overseas, politics, any of it. And yet they still don't cover it in as the main topic. Will that ever change? I'm not sure. But if this thing breaks, and if there is that, if you've seen Disclosure Day, it's going to be a spoiler if you haven't, at the end with the reporter who is being pretty, even if you didn't like the movie, most people are talking about how good her performance was. And the way that they treat the topic, it's like that's the way it should be treated if there is actual disclosure and all these things break. But would that actually happen? Or would people then be, okay, well, what's next on, or why is this the fourth story? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But do you think this Varginha case is going to get further explored? I think there's something to it that, 96 and here we are today, and we still have an opportunity to really find out what the hell's going on. What say you? Put your thoughts in there. Let us know. I appreciate you. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye. I've never been a nicotine guy, ever. Just haven't. I smoked in the past, made me feel not good. Especially, I remember that was back in the day. Like, I started recently getting back into the gym about a year and a half ago, and way back in the day when I did, I remember that was like during that week or two that I was smoking, having cigarettes. And I remember just not having the energy. I didn't have that great recovery time. I felt like I was on edge, and that was within like a week or two of smoking. So a lot of people do actually use nicotine for pre-workout, thinking that it's going to make their workouts and pumps better. And the reality is actually the complete opposite. Nicotine's actually detrimental to your workouts because it's a vasoconstrictor. It narrows your blood vessels and restricts oxygen delivery to muscles, which can directly counter the pump that you're looking for when you want to get out of your workout. So That's why, and I have been, my buddy who was relying on nicotine for a little bit, I introduced him to the Ultra pouches, and they really have been a complete game changer for his workouts and energy levels in general. When they came to sponsor the show, it was about, I don't know, I think it was about 3-4 months ago, and they really been working tremendously for him. They give instant focus, energy boosts. They use clinically proven nootropics and adaptogens to deliver immediate focus and smooth energy that lasts 1 to 2 hours. They're the perfect solution for the people who take their health seriously but want an energy boost. So even talking to my buddy about the pouches, immediately he said that he's getting so much better of a pump during the workouts with all the energy that he has. He didn't even know it was possible to feel this energized and focused without any nicotine or caffeine. So the one thing that he did tell me, which I loved, and I said, well, I'm going to tell people about that, is he's getting better sleep. He's just not great with the sleep, but nicotine pouches and caffeine, what they do is they spike your heart rate at night, which kill your body and your brain's ability to recover. So Ultra pouches, they have a shorter half-life than caffeine, so they won't disrupt your sleep. They have really cool flavors to it, too. They have cool mint, wintergreen, tropical, watermelon. It's awesome. So Ultra is the ultimate guilt-free pouch, delivering instant focus, mental clarity without nicotine or caffeine. New customers can use that code DTE, get 15% off at takeultra.com. That's takeultra.com for 15% off with that code DTE. And you're going to purchase it, and they're going to say, where'd you hear about us? You tell them that DTE sent you, support the show, and tell them that we sent you over there. Ultra.